All right, week 4 classwork. Time to start taking notes now. So go ahead and open up your Google Doc for classwork. Put in week 4 as your major heading, and then your minor heading in this case is classwork. Okay, so this is the video you're watching first, and I say in here class topics is the first minor heading that you'll have. And now underneath class topics, let's go do my IT lab. Okay, so this is actually recorded right after you all finished your first My IT Lab item. And I want to go over some steps that I recommend you take in order to be the most successful with My IT, because this is obviously an important part of what we have in this class, and you being successful is important. So having a good experience helps you feel like, yeah, I can go do this. So the first one is something I've said before, which is work ahead. So in your notes, work ahead. And now why do I say this? Because you're going to see, I'm going to talk about in a minute, that if you're having issues with My IT Lab, you're going to end up submitting those first to me. And then I'm probably not going to be around when you may need me if you're working on the same night something's due. So on this item in your notes is that I shut off, and I think I've said this before, between 6 and 7 and probably closer to 6 on a weeknight. And typically on the weekends I'm off because I work during the week. So that's why it's important for you to work ahead, especially on anything that you may run into technical issues with, which could be My IT Lab or it could be the hands-on Code Academy. Okay, so just know that this is why it's important. It's not just me, teacher, saying work ahead, but there's reasons, because if you work ahead you have more ways to get options, which is really my second point, is close everything before you start an exam. And if you run into issues, use a different browser and or a different computer. Now this is what I said in your week 2 classwork, or the week 2 hands-on. This is why I wanted you to get a backup system so that you have another place to go. So what this means is, for students in the classroom, if you've attempted to work at home and you run into one item not working, you can come into the lab in order to attempt that item. But if you do it after the due date, it is considered late. Now I've talked to you about how to get late points back. I'm not going to go over that here, but that's why it's important for you to work ahead. So in your notes, let's see if you got what I'm trying to help you understand why this is important. Okay? So now, if you run into issues with My IT Lab, here's what you need to do. You need to email me through Canvas. Tell me the platform. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, I just basically mean Windows or Mac in this case. And if you're using another device, you'll need to tell me what browser are you using. And then give me the My IT Lab item and the step. And I'll show you how to find that in a second. And then if I can recreate the issue, I'll submit a support ticket to My IT Lab. But if I can't, you will need to do that. Now today this happened with a student last night. I told them to contact support with something they said wasn't working. Well, My IT Lab sent them back to me. So I spent the morning talking to the rep, and I ended up figuring out what the issue was. But that's not typical, okay? Because there's going to be so many different things that could go wrong. There's so many different things that go right as well. I had many of you do this without issue. So I'm just not going to say everyone will, but some of you might. Okay? So in your notes, how to report issues. These are the things you have to send me. You have to send them through email. Like I said, the sooner you send them to me, the sooner I can attempt to figure out, if I can recreate it or not. So the other thing is, on the learning aids, I saw students in the classroom stumble sometimes when it come to the practice, that it just wouldn't do exactly what you want. So make sure, if you're not getting practice to always work, flip to watch the video, because that really will help you in the cases of practice might have stumbled for some reason. Because ultimately this learning aids, which is really in the training, is in order to help you get to the exam. Okay, so just getting through that so you can get to the exam is the important part. And then today what I'm going to show you how to do is to view step-by-step instruction for each item, meaning training or exam. Okay? All right, so let me first show you how to find the My IT Lab item. So I'm going to go ahead and open up. I'm going to open up an exam. Now this is going to be true as far as the number for either one. Now what will happen is it's going to open really big, and I'm just going to kind of bring it down because it's going to be so big you're not going to be able to see the whole thing. But I'm going to show you how to find that item. Let me scoot over here, right here. Okay, so in this case, here's the step number. So word, step, and 1.1.1. Now in this case, there's probably two within this item. There's probably two major steps. So if you get through the first step and you're on to the second, like this is bolded, then that's the second step. So this is the item, and then that's like this would be step one if you couldn't do this step. Okay, so I want you to know that is that that's how you find the item, right? And I've said this before, but you can see also if I move up a little bit, there is a view all. Let me go down and do this. View all, so you can actually see as well in here. Those are the items for each individual, one that you have to complete. They all have individual numbers, and they won't correspond to the actual sequential number. Okay. All right, so that's how to find it. The other thing I want to show you, and I'm going to go ahead and leave this because I haven't started it, is I want to show you, and you all did this when you looked at your items, right? You did view submissions. The other thing I want you to know about view submissions, really important, is that you can actually see the step-by-step instruction. Now this is not the great example because I haven't submitted in this section that one, but when you come in and I have you hit the print to do the score, actually look through here closely and you will see that each item has detailed step-by-step, so that if you missed one you can attempt that again, because you have 3 attempts, and then if you have that step-by-step you should be able to take that and get the ones you got wrong. So use your attempts to get a higher score in that case. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you about that part of it, and then I talked about that. So let me tell you what happened this morning with a student, is that the student had an issue with one of the first chapter 1 items, and I went in and recreated it. And I had the same issue, and so I submitted it to my IT lab, and then after I submitted it, I actually figured out what the issue was, and I'm going to show you in case you run into anything like this. And this is in Chrome, and let me actually do this. Let me bring this down just a little bit so you can see this. In Chrome, under More Tools, there's something called extensions. And so extensions are great. We generally, many of us have them and don't even realize we installed them. So under extensions, I had installed an extension, and actually the student had also installed an extension. And if you scroll through here and you look at the extensions, I had, and I'm going to show you the one I did, but I want you to look for anything that might be affecting your browser screen. So in my case, I had a Grammarly for Chrome. And what this was doing is anytime I would write, it would give me a highlight if I had spelled something wrong. Well, it was enabled, and when I took it off, the item that the student wasn't able to complete, and in my case I wasn't able to complete, worked. So it's good to go through here and take off anything that you don't know for sure that you need if you're running into problems. So that's one step of troubleshooting, right? So if I was to add to my troubleshooting list here, which I want you to do, I want you to remove any extension, if you're using Chrome, that you might think would cause an issue. Now, by the way, that's also a good reason to try another browser, because maybe you're trying Firefox because you normally use Chrome, and then maybe in Chrome you've installed all these extensions that don't work, or it's not that they don't work, they may be interfering with your work. Okay, so this is the troubleshooting that you get to figure out. This is not some fun sometimes, but once you figure it out and it works well, you'll just be happier. Okay, all right, so the last item on here, and I want to talk about this, is that ultimately where we're heading, it's so funny, it's covered up right there. Ultimately where we're heading with this is that you are going to have a lab test, okay? So let me show you this. So right now we're in what's called, and put this in your notes, simulation mode. So you're learning Word, Excel, and Access through simulation mode, okay? And what will happen is after we finish all chapters of Word, so in this case all 4 chapters, then we're going to actually move on to have you have a hands-on experience. What the setup calls here, and I'll rename my content, but a hands-on test. And when you get to the hands-on test, you actually are going to need Microsoft Word. I had a student reach out to me last night and say, hey, can I get Word? I know it's free, but how do I get it? And I was trying to understand why she needed it at this moment, and that she thought she needed it for these first 4 chapters. And the answer is you don't, but you will need Word and Excel and Access to complete the lab test, and we will have a lab test after each 4 sections of chapters. So after we do chapters 1 through 4, lab test. Excel 1 through 4, lab test. Access 1 through 4, lab test. Okay, so I want you to have that in your notes so that you know ultimately where we're heading here for each of these is a lab test. Okay, and here's the other thing: these lab tests are actually a pretty big bang in your overall course, okay, as far as the grading goes. So here's what you can see. These assessments are worth 15%, but you have more of them. So these are your My IT Lab exams, but the lab test, that's 15%, but you only have 3 of them. So each of them is worth 5%, okay? That's why I want you to know that. So if you saw this, and I talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again, and I went in and made sure I saw this today, is that you can get Word and Excel and PowerPoint for free from having your FCC email. Okay, so I went in here and looked at mine today. I logged in and I went to Office 365 and I saw that you can still download that. Okay, so that is an option for you to get Word and Excel and PowerPoint. What this doesn't give you though, okay, so let me just be clear, you can get those, there's the video to help you do that. The one you don't get is Microsoft Access, which is the last point that I'm going to make here. Is that I had said this before, but I set you all up, and you should get an email hopefully this week for the MS Imagine program. And then I will include in this write-up classwork a link to the video where I actually show you how to install Microsoft Access. But again, this is not until a little later in the semester. As a matter of fact, let's just be clear when you're going to need Access. Excel. So we have our lab test here on October 30th, and our first Access is going to be November 6th, but our lab test for Access will not be until November 27th. Now, here's what I will say though. For Mac students, I would actually not wait that long in order to get this whole thing set up, and you'll know what I mean when you watch the video. Okay, and I'll again, and by the way, if you don't know, if you go to YouTube /Rhea Waller, you're going to see my YouTube channel, and you can see the video. Matter of fact, if you want, you can actually see the little video I created troubleshooting this one word item. And I'm going to just go down here and look at all these videos just to show you how much is here, which is probably why most of you don't go to my YouTube channel. You're like, no, I just want to watch what I need. But what I'm going to provide you to is a link into the video where I walk you through how to set up the My IT Lab, or sorry, the Access on Windows or Mac. But if you're on Mac, you're going to need to have more steps you walk through. Okay? All right, lots there. I know that's true, but you need to have all that at least summarized in your notes so that I make sure that you've gotten it. Okay? All right, so now let's go back and look at this item that we have due for tonight, which is our week 4 classwork. And so in addition to taking notes here, as a matter of fact, I think I've already provided, since I did this second time, I provided the link to the Access, and I should just call it the install of Access, and I did. This one you don't have to take notes on. This was just a reference to that. But here's what you're going to have now that you've gotten through this. You'll need to have how computers work and watch this video on binary. So this is an important topic in our class, to understand the binary system and the numbering system that goes along with it. And then what I'm going to have you do is a little hands-on experience. And so what I have you do here, and you'll do this in your notes, so you'll have another heading called binary answer. So there's several headings here. I've talked about them up here at the top. Under binary answer, what you're going to do is figure out what I'm asking. Okay, so you would copy that. Now I'm not going to do this because this is the part I want you to do, and you would paste that in here. Okay, now I'm not going to do that just for fun. Okay, what I'm going to show you is what happens is that when you type in, when you cut and paste those zeros and ones, you'll hit decode, and then my question for you will show up over here. And so once you see the question, then you'll write your answer. Okay, write your answer. Now write a little bit of an answer, and now make sure you put this spacer, because if you don't put the spacer, let me just show you what happens when you encode, because that's what you will do. And by the way, that's what computers do. They're constantly encoding and decoding. When you ask it to do something, or when you give it information, it's always converting it from its understanding to ours. So notice what happens over here. When I don't put the separator, it's just one long line. So when you copy and paste that into your classwork document, it'll go off the page, and that'll be a few points off. So make sure you put the spacer in there. So you write your answer, you encode it. When you get your answer to my question that you figured out, then you'll place that in your classwork document under the binary answer. Okay, so again, learning about binary, learning about you know, what it means, because computers understand this, we understand this. So the last one you'll do is you'll watch this relatively short video from Michio Kaku, who's awesome. He's one of my favorite people in the world, but he talks about this idea of quantum computers. And he talks about qubits. So we talk about bits here, binary digits, and you learn about it, but I want you to know what's coming is a new numbering system that we're going to need for a new age of computers that are coming. So that's why I have you watch these in this sequence. All right. Great week. Hope you got a lot out of this. Hope you have gotten a good start to the semester. I'll talk to you later. Bye.